Alright, this video is going to be on entitlement spending. It'll help you complete your essay that'll be done over the break, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. When it comes to the government and spending money, there's really three different ways that the government can spend money. The first is called discretionary. Here the government has a choice on how to spend the money. The second one's called non-discretionary money. This has to be spent no matter what. Basically, people get this money if they qualify for it. There's no choice. Congress has no choice on whether or not they want to spend this money. The last one's interest on the debt. This one we also don't have a choice because it's very important that we pay off our debt so that people will loan us more money. Now, when we look at spending, what we can see is a discretionary spending where Congress has a choice is actually just a small amount. The most of this money is going to be spent on the military, education, housing in the community, international affairs, energy and the environment, and then of course other stuff. On the flip side is the mandatory spending. This is $2.27 trillion, and this is what we're really going to be looking at. This is made up of Medicare and health, Social Security, unemployment, food assistance, food stamps, and then other things like welfare and public housing. Now we're going to look at entitlement programs. When you're entitled to something, it means you get it. Entitlement programs are means tested. This means that the government will determine who is eligible to receive the benefits via usually some type of application where you may have to prove that you don't make a certain amount of money. So if you're poor, you get benefits. You may have to prove that you are 65 years of age or more, and potentially prove if you're disabled. So if you qualify, if you meet their requirements for being poor or old or disabled, then you get the benefits. They can't stop you from getting the benefits. It's not a choice on their part if you meet the requirements. So that's what I mean. You get these programs if you meet the requirements no matter what. For example, Social Security, payment to old people. So if you're over the age of 67, you automatically get these payments. Medicare. This is health care for the elderly who receive Social Security. Again, if you're over a certain age, you automatically get this money. Unemployment. If you're unemployed, you're also eligible to receive certain payments. Then there's assistance programs. These could be for the needy. So if you're blind, if you're a dependent child to a poor person, if you're over a certain age, etc. Disabled, all those things. Now the history of these programs began with the Great Depression, when most major helpful programs got started. And of course FDR, my favorite president, is the one who started all these programs. They then expanded under my second favorite president, Johnson, through his Great Society program and the War on Poverty. Then my least favorite president cut these programs through conservative supply-side tax cuts, where he cut taxes and therefore cut spending. Bill Clinton restored some of this funding, but he passed the power from the federal government to the states so that the states could really control a lot of these programs. And Obama has given them a lot of extra funding because of our recession. Now the big programs that we're going to look at are Social Security and Medicare. The money from Social Security and Medicare comes from something called the payroll tax. These are special taxes that can't be spent on anything else except Social Security and Medicare. In 2012, payroll taxes generated $845 billion, which is 35% of all taxed income. The way it's taxed is in a special category, and 12.4% of your taxable income goes into Social Security, and then your employer pays another 12.4%. And for Medicare, it's 2.9%, with the employer paying another 2.9%. Now this money goes towards these programs. So Social Security is what we call old age survivors and disability insurance. There is no means test, which means once you're over a certain age, you automatically get it. It's paid for by payroll tax that is separate from regular income taxes, like I said. And you get back what you pay in, plus interest and a bit more from investments done by the government on your behalf. So if you end up paying $100,000 into Social Security over your lifetime, that money is actually yours. And so you will then get paid back that $100,000 from the government over time. And if you live long enough and you run out of your money, the government will continue to pay you with their money. If you die before you run out of money, so if you die and there's still $50,000 left of your Social Security, it will actually go to whoever you have in your will. So they will receive the payments until the money runs out and then it stops. That can include your husband or your wife or your children or anyone else that you designate to receive that money after your death, if there's any left over. Now, the way Social Security works is that people who are currently working today, like myself and possibly you, pay into the Social Security Trust Fund. This money then gets spent on retirees, disabled, survivors, and dependents. Any extra money would be invested and then put back into this trust fund. So I'm paying for my grandmother's Social Security right now, just like she paid for her grandmother's Social Security when she was young and working. So basically the people of today are paying for the old people of today, and so on. And so when you qualify for Social Security, it'll be your grandchildren who are working to pay for your Social Security payments. Now, the Social Security program is the largest and most expensive government program in the world. In 2008, it made up 20% of the federal budget, with over $612 billion spent. There are over 63 million people receiving benefits, and the average monthly payment is a little over $1,000 for them to live on. The retirement age, which is when you can receive payment without any penalty, is 67 for people born after 1959. And you can start collecting as early as 62, but there is a penalty because you're considered to be collecting early. Now, Medicare is when the government pays for part of the cost of your medical care for retired or disabled people on Social Security. In 2010, there were 47.5 million people who were on Medicare, costing $521 million. The big thing about this is non-discretionary, as I've said. The government is not allowed to spend any of the payroll tax on anything else other than Medicare and Social Security. That money is in a special bucket and it cannot be touched by the government. Next, we have unemployment insurance. This is payments to workers who are laid off and cannot find work. States have their own unique rules for benefits and requirements. The estimated cost for 2014 is going to be $44 billion. The taxes for this program are paid by employers based on the number of employees they have. And there's also an extra and emergency funding coming from discretionary spending by the government, which means it's optional if they want to pay extra, especially during a recession when people are laid off for a long time and it's really hard to find jobs. Now, you only qualify for this if you had a job and now are still looking for a job but cannot find work. And frankly, these benefits, the extended benefits, have actually just been cut by Congress because they're going on vacation and the funds run out on December 31st. So some people who have been unemployed for a long time and can't seem to get a job, they're about to have their money cut off, unless Congress changes their mind. The next kind of program is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF. This is the commonly known as welfare, program known as welfare. These are payments to needy families with children. They're paid for by block grants, thanks to Bill Clinton, which means the states are given this money to control and give to their people as they want. Now, this is means tested. You have to meet certain requirements to receive the benefits. For example, you may have to fill out job applications. You may have to make sure that your kid is going to school on a regular basis. You may have to go to trainings every couple of months, and you may have to potentially, like we learned about in Florida, take a urine test to make sure you're not on drugs. And if you break any of these rules, the state could cut you off from your benefits. Now again, each state decides what the requirements are, how long benefits can last, and how much you get money for. In Texas, benefits only last for a few years over the course of your lifetime, which means once you've used them for 2 years, you're cut off. It doesn't matter if you become poor again or have more kids. In June of 2013, there were 4 million people receiving it, and the total for the entire year was $5.8 billion. Medicaid is the medical expenses of persons receiving TANF or SSI payments. In 2010, there were 66.5 million people enrolled, and it cost $275 billion. It's about $7,000 per person. The next program is a Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP. These are food stamps. In 2012, it cost the government $80.4 billion and served 46 million people. Basically, if you made under a certain amount of money, you automatically qualified. That's why it's an entitlement. As long as you meet the requirement, the government has to give it to you. They can't deny you your food stamps. It's not a choice for them. They have to pay it if you make under a certain amount of money. Of course, they could change this by law if they want to, but they have to change it by law. Last thing here, closing questions. Make sure you answer them, bring them into class.